Journalists, activists, and world leaders take to Twitter to react to threats against teleSUR by opposition figure Juan Guaidó. We look at a summary of the acts of destabilization and other coup failures since Guaidó self-declared himself as president of Venezuela. And Iran is hit by heavy flooding with hundreds having to be rescued. Hello and welcome to teleSUR English. I am Estefania Bravo and this is from the South. It has been almost a year since opposition figure Juan Guaidó declared himself president of Venezuela, initiating several coup attempts and promoting the destabilization of the country with the full backing of the U.S. government.
Days before January 23, 2019, little-known opposition figure Juan Guaidó had taken over as the head of the country's National Assembly, a legislative body that has been held under contempt by the Supreme Electoral Court since 2017 for electoral fraud and other offenses. But on that day, he proclaimed himself president of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela.
Juro.
I swear to formally assume the national executive powers as acting president of Venezuela.
With the full support of the U.S., the OAS, and regional right-wing governments, this day marked the beginning of a series of illegal actions taken by the opposition lawmaker, whose momentum was strong in the first 2 months before a significant decline. 1 month after his self-proclamation, Guaidó called for the entrance of so-called humanitarian aid from the United States into Venezuela at the Simón Bolívar International Bridge. The stage was set for what he was sure would be his first major victory. But the Bolivarian armed forces held strong despite attempts by violent protesters to incite clashes, and then the unexpected happened when 2 of the trucks carrying the so-called aid were set on fire. Of course, the international media was quick to accuse President Nicolas Maduro of destroying the supplies. However, footage later revealed that the opposition protesters were the ones throwing dozens of Molotov cocktails, which ultimately set the vehicles on fire. By this point, millions of dollars in aid were also unaccounted for. While tens of thousands of dollars had been allocated to pay for hotels housing military deserters and their families in Cúcuta, Colombia, the money had been embezzled by Guaidó's own special envoys to the city, which reports later stating the money was used to buy expensive clothes, liquor and food, as well as other expenses like prostitutes and even drugs. All while the local UNHCR office picked up the tab for the dozens of deserters and their families who were eventually evicted and left to survive on the streets. But that's chump change compared to the millions of dollars raised in a live aid-style concert that was meant to land in the hands of Venezuelans. But to this day, there's no telling where the money has gone.
¿Los fondos para qué?
The money that they were receiving was supposedly to finance all the terrorist acts being perpetrated against the Venezuelan people. It's such an appalling situation that even an assassin of truth and dignity, like OAS head Luis Almagro, has called on an audit over the missing funds and the people behind it, including Mr. Guaidó.
On April 30th, 2019, joined by a group of military deserters, Juan Guaidó freed opposition leader Leopoldo López from his house arrest. For Guaidó and his cronies, this would be the day when the armed forces and the people of Venezuela would rise up against President Maduro. Lies were spread on social media that the Carlota military base had been taken and that the army had turned. But as the day went on, it became increasingly clear that their coup attempt had once again failed miserably.
I want to deny comments that have been circulating that the Carlota airbase has been taken. We are all here at the airbase, officials, troops, staff who are loyal to our commander Chavez, loyal to our commander-in-chief Nicolas Maduro. And I want to add that some members of our armed forces who were deceived earlier got in touch with me and have come back to the base.
Months later, in September, it was revealed that Guaidó had links to the Colombian paramilitary group Los Rastrojos as he continued with his efforts to besiege his country. But come January 2020, a desperate Guaido began to grasp at straws after he was voted out as president of the National Assembly. Luis Parra won with 81 votes in favor out of the 150 members. Now, as the vote took place, Guaido refused to enter the assembly because he knew support for him had dropped. His solution was to bring in lawmakers who were banned by the Electoral Council to accompany him, so he could claim to have majority support. When this was not allowed, he alleged that he had been blocked from entering by the National Guard. Once the cameras were ready, the opposition lawmaker decided to put on a show.
Guaido didn't come into the assembly simply because he didn't have enough votes. When we arrived in the morning, we said we were fed up with the assembly being kidnapped and that we wanted to end the polarization in the country. So we presented an alternative, and the vote took place with about 150 members of the assembly present. That is registered on the videos. The others didn't leave. There was a clear quorum present, and we succeeded in electing our leadership with 81 votes.
But in true Guaido fashion, he came back to the assembly days later to force his way in and now proclaim himself as president of the National Assembly. With support from a small but violent group of his supporters, Guaido stormed the assembly's building, attacking law enforcement. As President Nicolas Maduro has once again reiterated a call for peace and dialogue, for Guaido, this has fallen on deaf ears. While the majority of the opposition have proven to want free and fair elections, Guaido, on the other hand, wants his show to continue.
Voices of solidarity across the continent have poured out in support of teleSUR in reaction to the threats made by opposition figure Juan Guaido against the network.
Viva teleSUR has been trending on Twitter. Among the solidarity shoutouts was Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel, who tweeted his energetic rejection of the threats against the voice of the peoples who fight and resist the empire from our America and the world. The legitimate president of Bolivia, Evo Morales, also took to Twitter saying that the coup-mongering Venezuelans are now announcing the theft of the teleSUR signal, the voice of the humble Latin American and Caribbean people. He said that they want to impose just one voice throughout the world which speaks only for them and want to do away with the memory of struggle and history. They won't be able to. From Venezuela, the president of the National Constituent Assembly, Diosdado Cabello, said that the creation of teleSUR has been made into the obligatory reference of informative balance of what takes place in the Americas. Those who have never built anything today want to destroy, but have not been able to and can't, what the great Hugo Chavez founded. Venceremos, he says. Argentine writer, reporter, and analyst Marco Teruggi says, why attack teleSUR? Because teleSUR covered the uprising in Ecuador, the coup in Bolivia, the mobilizations in Chile and Colombia, and the attempts to overthrow the government in Venezuela. teleSUR hurts the right and the United States. And from El Salvador, FMLN lawmaker Nidia Diaz says, quote, we're in solidarity with teleSUR TV before the slander and onslaught of the continental right, particularly by the imperial instrument, which is Juan Guaido. She said that teleSUR has been characterized by its exercise of professional journalism committed to democratic and humanist causes in Latin America and the world. The FMLN lawmaker went on to say that the channel has worked to denounce lies and injustices and to promote peace and respect for human rights. And finally, the president of this multi-platform network, Patricia Villegas, says that teleSUR will continue with its work.
Welcome back to From the South. Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley is boasting of his government's support of social services. He was speaking in an interview ahead of general elections expected by September 2020.
The one area that we have been very good on is that we've maintained the social services program, and we have spent every year approximately $5 billion in that sort of thing, from pensions all the way down to household food card grants and benefits to households for orphans, looking after geriatrics in their home with home care and so on. And we've maintained a health system which, while not being perfect, we've provided it with the resources of personnel, medication, physical environments so that healthcare can be delivered. Those are the priorities that we are focusing on, ensuring that the population still can hold on to that.
The Prime Minister is urging the public not to judge his administration on the out-of-control murder rate alone. Runaway crime has been one of the failings that have tarnished the ruling People's National Movement administration, with more than 2,000 citizens killed since they assumed office in 2015.
It would not be fair to the government to be measured by a situation which didn't arise overnight. And it's not a feature of this administration. It's not a feature of Trinidad and Tobago. Crime and criminality as a responsibility of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, governments of the Caribbean, and I dare say wider field, is going to remain a major focus. And while we would not have eliminated or even reduced murders as we have embarked upon, there are a lot of other things that the government has been successful at.
Zimbabwe's President Emerson Mnangagwa has hailed his country's bilateral ties with the People's Republic of China. Speaking during a meeting with visiting Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, Mnangagwa said Zimbabwe regards China as a sincere and reliable ally. He added that Wang's visit is evidence of the strong ties between the two nations. Zimbabwe's relations with China date back to the pre-independence era, when Beijing provided financial and military support to the country's liberation movement.
He is very happy about the visit. He is very happy that he had occasion to go over relations between the People's Republic of China and Zimbabwe on all issues. And he goes back home satisfied that our relations are on a solid foundation.
Isabel dos Santos, the daughter of a former Angolan president, has defended herself of alleged corruption charges. Speaking to the media, dos Santos denied all charges leveled against her and claimed the current government is persecuting the former president's family. Most of the charges leveled against dos Santos are based on the mishandling of state-run companies. Recently, the Angolan government froze some of her assets and bank accounts.
Well, the allegations are false. Unfortunately, we were not given the opportunity to present our evidence or to defend ourselves. We were not aware of any such proceedings. We were not summoned. We never received any notices. I've never received a summons. My directors never received any summons or notices. So these proceedings were very much held in secrecy. We don't know exactly what are the accusations, but from what we've heard so far, we can say that the allegations are false allegations.
The damage caused by climate change is often exacerbated by abuses and violations on farmers' rights. In Kenya, where an economic model based on oil drilling has led to flooding and droughts, farmers are forced to migrate in search of a better life.
Over the last few years, 2 transnational companies have been exploring Kenya's Rift Valley in search of oil. Recently, they held a celebration, as many believed they'd found what they were looking for. Isaiah Biwot, born in this village, is a volunteer in an organization that represents the community's demands. They're condemning the World Bank for financing this oil exploration. The community's resilience depends on agriculture, including cattle and goat breeding. Nevertheless, each year, young people leave the village in search of an easier life.
The young men are more interested in planting season starts from April and ends at August. But this year we had no rains from April, May, but we received a very short rain in June, late June and July. So, but the harvest was very, very, very little. In 1 acre, expectation, people would expect to get something like about $25 by one acre. But this year, the first person who maybe say the harvest a lot was 5, 6 in 1 acre. So it was very poor. No.
The heavy machinery of Tulox oil passed through here. Without any warning or request for permission, they ran over the community's crops, causing damage that hasn't even been paid for.
Total money they paid me is 8,000. Rains are not predictable. So during the year that we don't have any rain, the mango starts the best, and it will help people economically to get money. Because one mango fruit, you can sell at 20 shillings, but the list is 15 shillings. But one mango can hold up to 1,500 seedlings times the number of the trees you have.
The invasion by the transnational's heavy machinery damaged the land in this delicate ecosystem.
These trucks they were very heavy. So they go when they enter inside there. They felt the trucks will sink. So they come back. They use it now here. So the caterpillar, the creator now went through here. So you see, when you see this side and the other place, it is raised, but here it is depression.
I'm even seeing the rocks.
Yeah. So this is now the rocks. Those people, there is a lot of rocks.
Never removed them.
It was a flat area. It was balanced. So when you see here, when you stand here, this like an hill.
This land, when it's not raining, it's not productive anymore like before. And even this type of tree grows where there is the water table is high. Now that the water table has gone down because of the crack, the kali, they'll start drying up.
According to the community, the explosions carried out by Tullow Oil during their exploration caused a huge crack that lowered the level of the river.
We started witnessing this now. The issue of food security is now a problem.
Wetlands are going to disappear.
Somewhere here. And then after that, the use of this very high explosive during the seismic surface, the crack started developing because it developed along that line up to the other side. But the lower side, which there was no seismic survey done, is intact. It was tallow actually.
Family crops now depend on unpredictable rains to produce some food. The community's complaint against the World Bank is based on violations by the same company. Communities have not only gotten no benefits from the oil exploration of their land, they weren't even asked before it was done. What's more, their livelihoods are in danger from climate change. Climate uncertainty comes on top of the legal insecurity they face because the government hasn't given them
Welcome back to From the South. Leaders of the warring sides in Libya have vowed to observe a ceasefire after 9 months of heavy fighting. The announcement was made during a summit in Moscow attended by the head of Libya's Government of National Accord, Fayez al-Sarraj, and by General Khalifa Haftar, who leads the opposing Libyan National Army. Their meeting was mediated by government officials from Russia and Turkey. According to Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, the deal itself has not yet been signed by everyone, as General Haftar asked for some time to think over the agreement. The draft document suggests that all parties would stop military actions and observe the ceasefire conditions. Earlier, the president of Turkey expressed his optimism for the agreement to be reached.
Right now we are working to establish a ceasefire on the basis of an agreement. Our delegates continue to talks with the participation of all sides. I hope that a ceasefire agreement will be signed soon within this framework. Meetings in Moscow continue. I believe that these meetings will end in the evening, but I got information from my colleagues that the talks continue in a positive direction.
China's foreign ministry has condemned the new wave of sanctions by the U.S. against Iran. A statement by the ministry said unilateral sanctions are a violation of the United Nations Charter.
China always opposes unilateral sanctions and the so-called long-arm jurisdiction. We believe that arbitrary sanctions or threat of sanction cannot solve problems. China holds that in state-to-state relations, All countries should observe the purpose and principles of the UN Charter and the basic norms governing international relations, and resolve disputes properly through dialogue, negotiation, and other peaceful means.
Heavy rain and flooding in southern Iran has killed one person, destroyed houses, and blocked road links to more than 500 villages. The rain, which began on Friday, January 11th, has caused heavy flooding across several cities and villages. One person was confirmed dead, one missing, and several others sustained, according to the head of the country's rescue and relief organization. Local media has said provinces affected were Kerman, Hormuzgan, Sistan, and Baluchistan. Iran's Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif tweeted that there is significant human and material cost and said that the focus will be on restoring livelihoods as search and rescue continues. The minister said thoughts and prayers are with the affected Iranians. Members of the Alliance of Safe Cities are asking European Union authorities to allow them to take in more migrants. Speaking on behalf of other members, Mayor of the German city of Potsdam said a lot of municipalities are willing to receive the thousands of refugees who are currently stranded in overcrowded camps across southern Europe, but that national governments are stopping them from doing so. The Alliance has also condemned the anti-immigration policies that are being championed by right-wing leaders such as former Deputy Prime Minister of Italy, Matteo Salvini.
Meanwhile, we have the situation that there are municipalities, not only in Germany, but also in Europe, which signal that they are ready to accept refugees, if you only let us.
And I say that these Salvini laws are not only against humanity, they are also against the Constitution, because we have only one way to get security, and that is to make all people visible.
The NGO ships have picked up 237 migrants in the central Mediterranean Sea. The Open Arms and the Sea Watch rescue ships respectively led 118 and 119 migrants on board, including pregnant women and infants. The NGOs highlighted that the harsh conditions made migrants have to sleep outdoors, despite the cold and incessant rain in the last hours before they were found by them. According to the UN Refugee Office, over 1,000 migrants lost their lives in the Mediterranean in 2019 alone, as many are forced to flee their homes due to war, persecution, or poverty. Thousands of people rallied outside the Court of Justice in Barcelona in solidarity with jailed member of European Parliament and former Vice President of Catalonia, Oriol Junqueras. Junqueras, who was elected as an EU parliamentarian in May 2019, has been unable to take up his seat due to the fact that he is currently serving a 13-year prison sentence for his role in the 2017 Catalan independence referendum. The European Court of Justice ruled late last year that he was entitled to become a member of the EU Parliament and, as such, enjoy full rights, including immunity. Spain has, however, refused to obey the rule.
We are here to vindicate the votes of the Catalan people in the last elections to the EU Parliament. They should be represented in the EU Parliament. Today, the former regional president, Carles Puigdemont, and former regional minister, Toni Comín, will be able to act as EU MPs. But it isn't the case for Oriol Junqueras. We think that all votes that came from the last European elections should be represented in the EU Parliament.
Rio de Janeiro's fabled carnival, one of the world's biggest and most lively parties, was launched on Sunday with the traditional symbolic passing of a key to the city festival leader, King Momo. The carnival season kicked off early this year as the revelry begins from January 12th with a show on the sands of Copacabana. The festivities will end on March 1st. Rio's mayor, Marcelo Crivella, said the city expects about 1.9 million people to attend this year's carnival. The first carnival in Rio took place in 1723 and today is considered to be the world's biggest carnival. The Rio Parade is typically filled with revelers, feature floats, and dancers from numerous samba schools. And with that, we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media. We are on Facebook,